I'm joined by Paul Craine here in the studio. This one's different. He's got a different title. He's normally doing facts and figures for us, but climate reality leader. You've been on this leadership course in the States, and Al Gore was taking all sorts of... So over to you, because before we get into some really interesting data that you've pulled up here, but tell us about how this came about.
Okay, I went to see the film, Al Gore's second film on the Truth to Power, I think it was called, an inconvenient sequel, okay. And at the end of the film, it referred to the Climate Reality Project that he's involved in running. So I started following the website of the Climate Reality Project, and there's some tremendous information on there. You know, it's a very well-informed site. And they offer training events that the training events are free, but you have to apply and be selected, and you have to pay your own way to get there and pay your own accommodation. So I looked at one in Australia and thought, that's not realistic. One in Mexico City. And I'd abandoned those ideas. And then we had a holiday booked to go and stay with friends in Minneapolis. And they announced a training event in Minneapolis while we were there. So I'd already booked the flight, already had accommodations. That's right, yeah, that's the way it seemed, certainly. So I applied, and the application was enormous, because it took me about 2 hours, to the point when it then said, now enter your CV, you know. So it was a really detailed application, and then I heard that I'd been accepted onto the training. So I went to a training event in central Minneapolis at the convention center there, with 1,100 other people being trained at the same time. So 1,100.
That's a lot of people.
Enormous event, yeah. And the anticipation was that Al Gore was going to speak at some stage, but in reality, he was there every day, leading sessions every day, and his biggest session was nearly a 3-hour session where he was going through some of the resources that they've got. So what I come out of that, if you like, having done this training, but more than anything, having access to an enormous resource base, and it's quite controlled how I can use that, in the sense that I've got certain slides that I couldn't show on here because this is going to be recorded and broadcast.
Oh, so you can't use them for copyright, or
for copyright reasons?
Right.
Yeah, because some of the images that they've got are images that were taken by professional photographers or whatever around the world, right, or film crews, television channels, and they've got permission to include them in the slideshow, but not to be rebroadcast, if that makes sense. So I can use them in presentations, but.
Well, you got some for us today, and
I have, yeah.
The message is over to you. What tell us about what you got for us?
Well, the training was tremendously broad. It wasn't just about the climate. It was about soils. It was about agricultural changes. It was about industrial changes. It was about developments in wind and solar, and comparisons with coal and so on. And so there was a tremendous amount of that to it. But perhaps it's useful sort of to explain what's my story? How come I'm here talking about climate instead of talking about population? Yeah,
yeah, because that's your normal one, isn't it? Population?
Yeah, okay. And I know that as a geographer, which is, I did a geography degree, I did research in Isle of Man's population, but part of my degree was climatology, meteorology, was economic development, and so on. And these are all part of the climate change picture. Indeed, population is part of the climate change picture. When I was in my teens, the population of the planet was only 4 billion. It's now 7.7 billion. It'll be 11 billion by the end of this century, but it'll level out at that. So we're in this period of terrific population growth. I have an interest in all of that, but I was teaching for 20 years, and we were covering climate issues at A level. And we'd been through acid rain, we'd been through ozone layer issues, and then the global warming issue really began to come to the front, and it hasn't gone away. It's been there since. So I was teaching this throughout the 90s, and since then I've been a GCSE examiner and reviser, so I mark GCSEs every year, and there's not a year goes by now on geography GCSEs without questions about climate change. So I'm very much aware of how young people think about climate change. This summer I marked 200 questions on climate change from young people, and I know the range of understanding that's there. Some young people extremely well informed, you know, and others less so. So I'm engaged with this, and yeah, it's fascinating to have taken that further through this training, inevitably through wider reading before the training and since the training. And I'm now in a position where part of my agreement, the training was given to me free, and it was intensive training, 8:30 till 5:30, 3 days in a row, you know. And I am required now, I've committed to making presentations in my own community to helping take forward awareness of climate change.
Okay. Well, let's come to at the end, because I just run through these. You got 10 slides. Well, the first one's just your logo there, but you've got some information you want to impart on each one, I think. So over to you. Let's have them.
I think I've covered the first one, which was just a picture of the globe. You know, it's for a geographer, that's a tremendous image. That's the most copied image in the world, the blue marble image from Apollo 17 and 1972, tremendous
Amazing.
image. But when we look at the size of that, it's easy to think we cannot change this planet. You know, we are too insignificant to change it. It's a big world. When you focus in on just the layer of the atmosphere, most of the world's atmosphere by weight is below 16 kilometers, although the atmosphere gradually peters out. So some text will say it goes on to 500 kilometers, some it's 300 kilometers, but 16 kilometers, 90% of the weight of the atmosphere is within that short distance.
And that's what your picture shows, how thin it is, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is extremely
amazing.
Thin. And we've had 200 years really since the Industrial Revolution putting out pollutants. In fact, some of the latest evidence is suggesting that the agricultural changes that took place 4,000 or 6,000 years ago, those too impacted on climate, you know, measurably. Indeed, have perhaps delayed.
So it's not a new thing.
Delayed further ice ages, you know, is the current thinking on this, which is interesting. But there's much more than just the waste coming out of factories that's going into the air. There's domestic waste. There's the other sources include transport, include agriculture, energy. You know, there's a range of causes of climate change. Deforestation is part of this picture because of the way that forests take carbon dioxide out of the air and act as a carbon sink. So, and the oceans too act as a carbon sink. So, there's a whole area of what are the causes of this. You know, what do we understand to be the causes? And that's where I understand that we have some people who say it isn't happening. I would love that to be true, but there's nothing that I can see that would convince me that, yeah, we just need to ignore this and it will go away. No, nothing at all.
All right.
So the greenhouse gases are there. And what I've got in terms of the presentations that I can offer, to groups, organisations, you know, whoever wants it, I can mix that in accordance with what they think they need. So I can focus more on the causes, I can focus more on the consequences, I can focus more on the solutions, you know, because all of that is part of this.
Paul, there's so much to talk about here. We'll have a second part of this. We've got more of the slides to go through.